Hello everyone, salam, namaste, adab, and welcome to today's event. Today we have Professor Satvinderpal Kaur, a very well-known educator, Professor of Education in Panjab University, Chandigarh, and she is going to talk on the intersection of gender and education, the educational experiences of minority girls in India. She will be formally introduced by Dr. Sahid Mio, a faculty member at the Department of Sociology, Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. And the concluding remarks will be given by Dr. Vijita Rajan, who is a faculty member in the School of Education, Azim Premji University. Both, or rather all three, focus is on the marginalized section of the society, education in the marginalized section, especially on the Muslim girls or related subject. So welcome you all, and I now invite Dr. Sahid Mio to formally introduce.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Well, thank you so much. As told, I'm Dr. Saheed Mir. I teach sociology at Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. I specialize in the field of education. My research areas falls in the issues of the education markets and parental choices in an Indian context. Well, I thank Professor Satvinder and the Indian Diaspora Washington for giving me this exciting opportunity to open this insightful talk by Professor Satvinder on the intersection of gender and education, the educational experiences of minority girls in India. This discussion feels especially timely as we approach March 8, that's tomorrow, celebrated around the world as International Women's Day. Uh, friends, let's have a word actually before we dive into the lecture, and I formally introduce the speaker and the faculty member who is going to conclude this session. Friends, please join me in honoring the memory of the 165 girls and school staff who were killed when Israel and United States fired a missile on the Sarge Tayyib Girls' School in Minab on the morning of February 28, 2026. Most of those girls lost their lives were little girls between the ages of 7 and 12. And the tragedy struck at the around 10 a.m. in the morning when classes were in the session. From Gaza to Minab, innocents and precious little souls are murdered in cold blood. Let's condemn such uncivilized acts of cruel brutality, heinous crime, and barbarity by Israel and United States of America. Well, let me introduce the speaker of this session, Professor Satvinderpal Kaur. She is currently serving as a professor in Department of Education, Panjab University. She is also a coordinator at the Center for Academic Leadership and Educational Management, Panjab University. Her teaching and research span pedagogic studies, educational policies, and contemporary issues related to equity and quality in education, with a special focus on exclusion versus inclusion, especially concerning minority groups such as urban poor, rural slum dwellers, Muslims, tribes, women, and other disadvantaged sections of society. She has published over 50 research papers and has been publishing in leading academic journals like International Review of Education by Institute of Lifelong Learning, UNESCO, and Springer. She has published in very renowned, other journals. Those are very actually prominent in Indian context, like Economic and Political Weekly, Millennial Asia, and with renowned publishers such as Routledge, Springer, Macmillan, and Sage. Her latest publication is Impact of COVID-19 on Education, Impact on Access, Equity, and Inclusion by Routledge. She has also worked on more than 6 research projects funded at the national and international levels. Her latest collaborative research project is on decolonizing feminist research methodologies in education with Bath Spa University, UK. She has delivered talks in prestigious institutions like Cornell University USA, Pathsper University UK, and the University of Toronto, etc. She has also been engaged in policy advising and other important committees in government of Punjab, Karnataka, and other states in India. Well, we will listen to her. I will next introduce Vijita Ranjan. She's another member here. She will be present the concluding remarks at the end. Dr. Vijita Ranjan is a faculty member at the School of Education, Ajim Premji University, India. She joined the university in 2020 after serving as a senior research fellow at the University of Delhi. In 2018-19, she was a Commonwealth Scholar at the School of Politics and International Studies, University of Leeds, United Kingdom. Her doctoral research examines educational exclusion of migrant children in India and highlights the tensions between mobile childhoods and immobile school structures. Her areas of interest include sociology of childhoods and education, childhoods in global south, educational inequalities, education and social justice, and migration and education. Well, with this brief introduction of the speakers, let me give a few thoughts before Professor Satvinder takes the floor. Professor once said, every big story has more than one beginning. Just like patriarchy or the marginalization of women is rooted in culture, traditions, caste, religion, ethnicity, capitalism, and so on. Thus, here intersectionality and feminist standpoint theory helps us to see beyond the appearances and uncover the deeper roots of gender injustice. It is probably around this specific critical quest that Professor Satvinder would like to raise certain issues around in this interesting talk, where she would be engaging with the statistical jugglery and policy optimism with regard to the education of minority girls in India, especially. She does so by sharing deeper empirical observations from two dominant states, that is Punjab and Uttar Pradesh in Haryana. It thus becomes essentially important to situate Muslim girls at the intersection of gender norms, minority positioning, socio-economic precarity, and institutional practices and look much deeper through micro level data and lived experiences to explore how marginalization is multi layered, structured, and far more complex than it appears or is shown in policy documents and macro database by the state. So with these words, I hand over to Satvinder now. Ma'am, you may deliver your lecture now. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sahid. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for establishing the background of my this talk and the idea. Let me share my screen first. Yeah. नहीं, नहीं.
Yes, yes, we can see it. Very nice.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have to put my camera video on. Yes. Yes, good evening, good morning, adab, namaskar, sat shri akal. So, again, Sahid, thank you so much for the kind introduction and also for setting the background and the context of today's talk. So, tomorrow is, as you already said, tomorrow is the International Women Day, and I would like to dedicate my views and my all the observations to those who fought tirelessly for the equality, dignity, and justice for women. And I dedicate this lecture to the International Women's Day. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. So, I would make 2 points in today's talk. So, this talk is then a way to continue the legacy by talking about the equal rights, equal opportunities, and what kind of suppressions and the unpleasant news and the unpleasant challenges, struggles which the contemporary women and girls are facing all over the world. In the first part of my lecture, I would like to not lecture as such talk, I would like to build the context with two specific points upon gender in the Indian context and how gender identity shapes the experiences of the Indian girls. In the second part, I'll make my point based on a comparative study about the educational experiences of the girls, Muslim minority girls, in two different social contexts, and which is based on one empirical study conducted by me and my team of scholars in the past. So, let me start. I will try to locate the gender issue and the girls' concerns within the context of larger issues today, as gender is not merely a biological distinction between male and female in the Indian context. Rather, it is deeply embedded in the social, cultural, economic, religious, and political structures which situate in the different strands of power, roles, and the access to resources. So, we need much deeper understanding, like Sahid has just made my work easy. Yes, we need much deeper understanding because gender identity never operates in isolation. It is not about the boys or girls, men or women, but it is within the layered systems of caste, religion, hierarchies, class inequality, and colonial history. When we talk about intersectionality, we have the understanding that how intersectionality operates in multiple ways. All girls and women don't face the same educational barriers in their life, but social identities and their other like labels which society has put on them interact with and create overlapping systems of discrimination for some and privileges for the others. So in such an ecosystem, education occupies an intersecting space located between the economic and the cultural spheres. Almost 9 decades ago, it was Margaret Mead in 1935 who at that time who pointed that gender is purely a cultural and not a biological concept. She emphasized the relevance of social environment in shaping the culturally specific constructs of gender. And today's my argument will be based on the Mead's idea that how gender is purely a cultural concept and not the biological concept. Now we need to be looked the social environment, and in the context of India, the scholarly work on gender just started, inspired by the feminist movement of the West. Although women's involvement in public life in India goes back to the early 20th century. Yes. So now the conversation which we want to initiate here with the very very complicated question. The complicated question is, we are talking about which women, which girls, we are under what social conditions, and within which power structures we are talking about. And these are the essential questions. These questions are not very linear, these are complicated questions because the multi-layered system try to conceal the actual realities. So these questions need thoughtful examinations. And we are going to examine this with by and the deeper understanding of the social and cultural systemic issues which are indirectly and directly affecting the girls' education. And the intersectionality sees how overlapping systems of operation operates in simultaneously. In the Indian context, women's issues are inextricably linked to the patriarchy, and the patriarchy in Indian social structures is not linear. Rather, it has historical, regional, and social contexts rather than following a statewide trajectory of improvements. Historically and structurally, patriarchy was very much visible, and which was in the form of obvious and visible, tangible behavioral operations in the society. But with the change in the structures of the society, with the change in economic and social modernization, this patriarchy has got the metamorphic change. And the contemporary patriarchy is the neo patriarchy, which is the product of the modern world, from in which the traditional patriarchy is being adopted by the modernity. And the ancient male dominated gender roles, which were very obvious and at the surface one could easily see, are now in the Middle East and the developing countries. It now the patriarchy has changed to the neo patriarchy and the Indian context. And just after the neoliberal policies and after the how capitalism operated alongside the traditional patriarchy and creating a capitalist patriarchy. Now, the evidence for the capitalist patriarchy is how it marginalizes the woman in a very indirect way by relying on low wage, informal labor while imposing high domestic burdens. So, when the purchasing power of the woman is increased and at the surface level, patriarchal behaviors are concealed by the capitalist forces, and the new form of capitalist patriarchy is in indirectly. I would like to quote Krishan Kumar, how Krishan Kumar says that in the market model of development in the present times, the alliance between market and the culture has tightened its grip on girls' lives and, and has given strength to the girlhood, which again is strengthening the unequal relations in the society. So, why we talk about, because the every sixth woman in the world is Indian woman, and the Indian women's patriarchy in India and the other South Asian countries is affecting women. I think out of the 24 hours, the woman in Indian woman is spending 16.4% of the time with the unpaid domestic labor. And it is also evident that how capitalist patriarchy is in invisible form and in the conceal the actual realities and the labor with the labor force participation, which is 2.5 times unpaid care work, and which has been fallen from 42.7% to 23.3% in 2018. So, what does it mean? It is self-evident that the capitalism and the this post-modern times, the patriarchy is uh, functioning at the different levels. Cultural patriarchy, preference for sons, control over women's sexuality, these are operating, but under the layers, so that the market model can never make it allow it to come at the surface, so that the masses of equality may prevail in the society. Similarly, how it is deep rooted, even if we see historically in the Indian epics, the woman's position can be seen during in the Ramayana or in the Mahabharata, how the Agni Pariksha, trial by fire, and we can see the forced exile for Sita, and also the lack of agency, and how Draupadi is being like struggling for the systemic struggle by Draupadi's position and the commodification of women. So this is not a recent phenomena. It is has historical context also. So it is deeply rooted in the system social structures, and these deeply rooted structures are again like the reconstruction in the we can say the layered form in the postmodern era and the neoliberal era, and the double triple burden on women, how this patriarchy. So why I'm talking about patriarchy more, because patriarchy is, which is something not only related to the women gender only, it is a political, it is social, and it has historical and cultural contexts. So, and it is centuries old phenomena, which is again in different forms, like I would say that in the metamorphic form, is affecting the girls and the women's life opportunities in multiple ways. So now the question is, it has reminded me Shanta Sinha in one of her study, clearly, is patriarchy the default system of society? So she's posing a pressing question when she is talking about the girls' education in Telangana, where the marginalized Dalit girls are leaving the education, and her study was post-COVID study, how COVID impacted the girls more, and even the World Bank noticed that the 10 million girls would never rejoin their school after the COVID pandemic. So, in that context, Shanta Sinha asks us, is patriarchy the default system of the society? And any discussion on girls' education has to be seen through by addressing these pertinent questions. In the India, if we see the Indian context, India has made remarkable progress, no doubt, in expanding access to education. Since independence in 1947, many girls have entered in the education field, in the workforce, in diverse disciplines, in research, in administration, undoubtedly. But inequalities still persists. And again, the question, which woman, to which power structure, to which social cultural capital the girl comes, who are coming and who are the part of the impressing statistical figures. Towards Equality report in 1975 noticed multiple issues related to the women. Similarly, the state has made many efforts like right to equality, Article 14, constitutionally justified for the welfare of the women, right to education, Article 21A. Even in the recent past, the schemes like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas, and other much lauded schemes launched. And also, the success story is also can be seen through the impressive statistical figures. But still, the question is, despite all these efforts, why gender equality has not been achieved? So, in the Indian scholarship, scholars like Karuna Chanan, Leela Dubey, Bhatti, all worked to understand the kinds of processes and the mechanisms which are coming in the way of girls' education, and they also argue that socialization of girls centered on traditional values concerning social institutions which dichotomize the masculine and feminine roles, creating a gender asymmetry. And at the same moment, Naila Kabir cautions that the world cannot improve the women education by neglecting the influence of these social structures. So, when we see the education, because education as an institution doesn't exist in isolation, and not all girls are facing these same barriers. It is embedded in the complex metric of social relations, of which it is an integral part. Also, education has complicated relations with the state, social class, gender, ethnicity, economy, and politics. So this is the matter of education is actually a matter of politics. It is a matter of social concern. It is a matter of culture. So we can't isolate education from the or political interests. So that is why, due to the prevalent social forces, education can be liberating, can be conservative, critical, or supportive. India has achieved almost parity in the school level of education. So, in that way, the figures reveal that India has impressive figures, the enrollment figures, but still the dropout rate at secondary level is disturbing. Almost 40% of the girls at secondary level, they drop out due to multiple reasons in India. And these are official figures. These figures are out of the government reports. And the secondary education is which is which has a significance for delaying marriage, for boosting income, breaking poverty lines, creating awareness, and the developing the capabilities. In the words of Amartya Sen, when Amartya Sen talks about the role of education in his capability approach, how education is important for women to develop their capabilities. And at the secondary level, the girls at this they drop out due to multiple reasons. So access, it seems that access without equity is a critical question. So this critical question has been raised by so many scholars all over the world. I can quote here the Elaine Unterhalter. The Elaine says that gender inequality in education is connected with class, with caste, with ethnicity, disability, and poverty. She, in terms of Amartya Sen's view, she talks that the world cannot never develop the capabilities of the women without addressing these issues. But the number of we can say the schemes and the policies, why these policies could not address and could not ensure the equity rather than equality, the equitable development of the girls education, particularly the girls from the minorities, because we are talking about the intersectionality. The intersectionality talks about the multiple layers. A girl from which background, from which caste, from which religion, from which socio-economic status, what kind of cultural capital a girl carries. So the ideology, but it seems that number of policies in the Indian context, the ideology of promoting women education on the traditional grounds is encouraged by all the treaties and policies, it seems. And it has emphasized the women education in terms of household income, in terms of reducing fertility, in terms of increasing nutrition, not as a human resource development for the women and as of their human right. So in that context, we can situate the girls and the issue of gender in the multiple context of political and because the policies and the programs and the initiatives, they are just treating the girls a homogeneous group, neglecting the heterogeneity of the population because of the common yardsticks being applied and the equal treatment rather than equitable treatment. So with this background, I come to the point, the marginality and the minority issues of the minority girls. Minority girls are found to be a compounded disadvantage stage because there are multiple deprivations, being a minority, being from the lower income group, being from the lower caste, being from the lower cultural capital. In terms of Bourdieu's terms, the how cultural capital of a student, of a child, of a girl, of a woman, it operates while accessing the educational opportunities. So we did one study and based on the study, but before going to the actual insights of the study, I would like to make my point on the gender. in the Indian context and the religion, how religion operates in the Indian society. In India, religion functions as a powerful marker of identity. Although the constitution guarantees secularism, everyday life is structured by community boundaries, stereotypes, and power asymmetries. For Muslims, and especially for Muslim girls and Muslim women, religious identity can become a site of both belonging and the vulnerability, and offering a sense of community on the one hand, and also exposing them to exclusion and discrimination on the other hand. The minority status, along with other deprivations, um, create an ecosystem which results into silent exclusion. So when I talk about the silent exclusion, it is again the term which is concealed by the market and the modernity, so-called modernity in the third world countries. And such exclusion may be deliberate or unintended, but its consequences are deeply structural, affecting access to education, employment, healthcare, and the political participation. So, in that context, in the case of Muslim girls, the marginalization is rarely the result of single factors such as poverty, culture, or religion alone. Rather, it emerges from the combined effect of gender norms, minority status, economic constraints, and the institutional practices. An intersectional perspective is thus essential for understanding how educational inequalities are produced, experienced, and sustained in a particular religious minority. The combination of minority status and the religion needs to be looked in the context of social status. I would like to quote here Zoya Hassan. Zoya Hassan is a research particularly in 2004, which was on Muslim women. She argues that Muslim women in India face a combination of disadvantages: being women in a patriarchal society, being members of a religious minority, and often being economically marginalized. Moreover, the norms of the gendered behavior are not stated explicitly in any society. Language, symbols, signs, and codes of conduct convey those norms implicitly. So, gender based inquiry is actually an inquiry about the social and cultural systems which are being created by the religious identity of a particular group. So in this way, the minority position in a stratified way in itself conveys the kinds of I think the disaggregation of the particular group from the larger context. The confluence of gender and religious identities makes an absorbing area of inquiry, and the dichotomies of social and personal lives of girls demonstrate when a community may be based on wider things like religious, faith, occupation, and income. So, in that context, the Sachar committee, the larger in 2006, and unfortunately, after the Sachar committee report, no comprehensive research was taken place, and unfortunately, I think the state's efforts also seems effort seems like the kind of we can say overlook to the very very serious issue, because after 2006 this committee report has brought at the surface the structural inequality produced present in the Muslim women, why they are low literacy rate. They raised so many questions: why high dropout rate in this community, and why concentration in economically deprived urban and rural localities. So the different contexts and gender within minority status, how the double marginality is prevailing in that context. So now I'm coming to the study which we have done, and it was not very, I think, like comprehensive study, but it was on 600 girls, a sample of 600 girls, on two different areas. One was from Punjab, the one Malerkotla, the Muslim majority city, and the second from the Muzaffarnagar district in Uttar Pradesh. So these girls, they were representing rural and urban both, and we try to bring the insights out of our study, that how the social, cultural, and political context works for the girls who are belonging to this minority group. The socioeconomic status and family structure and the household profile, we have seen, you can see in the slides, that the father 22.7% of fathers had no formal schooling. So they were almost they were literate, but not very substantial levels of education. Similarly, the mother's education, 50% of mothers no education. So economic pressures girls are bearing. So parental education is very less, economic pressure, and the family, जो family gatekeeper, we can say that they are bearing the burden of the families poor economic status. So what does it mean structurally, if we say in the Bourdieu's concept of cultural capital is relevant here? When parents have limited economic educational exposure, the household lacks information, capital, institutional familiarity, and the high dependency ratio. So, in comparison, the UP, the girls from Uttar Pradesh were found to be more bearing the dependency ratio, keeping more as compared to the girls from the Malerkotla. Similarly, the girls from the Malerkotla had exhibited the high aspirations. And interestingly, when the girls were asked the questions about their safety or about their, we found that the at the secondary level the girls education dropout is comparatively low in Punjab, because the girls were facing that we are safe, and very less number of cases discrimination, rarely in the classroom. But as compared to the other group, the in the UP side, the girls, the cases of girls discrimination we found, and girls were under the with more pressure, and with the also due to the family circumstances. That is why when we saw the attendance in the school and the aspiration and the college enrollment, and that was not at par with the girls of the other group from Punjab. Similarly, the girls, we asked them what stops girls from going further, and we observed that the limited access to school, cultural and traditional barriers. Almost 50% of the girls view that the cultural and the traditional barriers, the home household responsibilities, sometimes the discrimination during the way to school, or the language barrier, and the others. So, climate of family supportive, very less we found, but the in the other cases the climate sometimes mixed, and these kind of observations came. But the most important observations which came, that the girls would feel safe and secure in Malerkotla as compared to the other city. A very few, hardly 0.5% reported the discrimination, half percent was on the basis of the religion. Similarly, intersectionality matters even when having the same identity in terms of families, socioeconomic status. Again, within this minority girls, the socioeconomic status would matter. The girls from the upper socioeconomic status within this minority group, they were better placed, they were more satisfied, more motivating, they were having the environment at home. And the girls from the humble background, from the poor socioeconomic status, they had found to be more challenges in their life. And again, because we are talking about intersectionality within the minority, again the intersectionalities are visible. So in this way, the educational participation and attainment, the 10th class threshold in the UP, we said 28%, almost 27.7% girls dropped out from the before passing class 10th exam, and also the graduation, before graduation. So in graduation the enrollment is 18% only. Similarly, their attendance is again the attendance is questionable, because the attendance is not regular for the girls who are supporting the family, who are from the humble background, and the girls who are from the well-to-do families whose both parents are working and have regular occupation and working in the organized sector. They are more regular in the class as compared to the others. Similarly, the culture, religious, gender norms, and discrimination. So when we talked about the this awareness about the, no doubt, state has initiated so many programs, policies, and the scholarships, but even the awareness also works, and the delays on the implementation of these schemes. So yes, again I would quote here the Saba Mahmood talks about the how preserving the culture. The Muslim minority girls have high aspirations, and they are getting the education. And again, because we had seen the girls who would like to be get the higher levels of education despite all the challenges. So it is in conformity to the Mahmood's observation in her study. Similarly, the family support and aspiration and mobility. And interestingly, we have gathered their narratives, and their narratives, like we asked them question, okay, what kind of discussions you do with your parents. In Muzaffarnagar, girls, we had a discussion. Then the girl says, खुदा जानता है कि हम आज तक अकेले घर से कहीं नहीं गए. So God knows that I have never gone anywhere alone. So these kind of otherwise it looks very surprising, but this is in her own words. A girl expresses that I had never gone anywhere alone except school. So they are growing up under the strict supervision of parents. So it is also observed, which is again the kind of out of the cultural practice. And similarly, the these visible markers of like sometimes the attire, the dress, and during walking through the streets, they are facing these kind of issues. Though all girls are not safe, irrespective of the minority or majority in the these girls, minority girls, are again the intersectionality is visible here, because the girls from the well-to-do families, they are at lesser risk, and they responded that they are comparatively safer than those. But again, the issue comes because of the resources, which family resources which were available. Similarly, so the predicament of girls come out very predominantly, that despite being the multiple challenges, financial strains in terms of tuition fee, coaching classes, transportation, and others, the portraits of their experiences in school and home present the patterns of life in which the movement is restricted, interaction with the male members of the family, and the discussion with the peers largely on code of conduct followed up in the hierarchy family setup. But still, girls have high aspirations to get education with substantial levels and to get degree. Many of the girls would wish to become the officers in life, become professors, doctors, or engineers, despite all these odds. And this is again the encouraging and the kind of resilience which these girls have in their life, and they must have the some kind of role models in their life. So it means across the religion, the patriarchal interpretations often are influencing the gender preferences. So in this way, we can conclude that not only the religious identity, the other multiple identities, the girls who are from the rural background, the girls who are from the humble background, their issues are starkly different from the girls who are from the urban and from the well placed families. Similarly, the communal politics, that is why I'm talking that we can't isolate education from the political context. The communal, that the polarization, peace and harmony impact girls education more than boys. And then it is observed out of our study that the girls in Punjab are comparatively more relaxed, more in peace, and more happy in their life, contented in their life, as compared to the other place girls, because the fear and insecurity influence their mobility, their identity based discrimination, discourage their attention, and thus the broader political climate shapes the education trajectories of the girls. It is also have come from the out of the studies. The majoritarian politics, economic inequality, and the institutional discriminations, the interplay of all these factors affect the story of the girls' education in a multi-layered way. And that is why the layered structural inequality is resulting into the gender disadvantage by the minority status, by the poverty, spatial segregation, and the social exclusion. This exclusion is not visible. Interestingly, this exclusion doesn't come in the figures, it is the silent exclusion. We have observed, though, even those girls who are dropping out of the formal education systems, their names are appearing in the figures of the data and in the schools. So this is it needs contestations when we talk about the the issues of gender and the religion. At the same way, simultaneously, it needs the contestations and the critical discussions. So across religion, patriarchal interpretations often influence the gender justice in the field of. So if we can say, so out of this whole discussion and the kind of critical questions and the debate which I have tried to like pose the questions before you, that is the reason that the India's workforce gap at the global level, the data reveals that 4 in 10 girls leave. It is the world scenario, and the dropout, and the women, though in the informal sector at large, is contributing to the 18% of the GDP, and the only with the only 25% female labor force participation. So it needs very serious interventions at the policy level and also at the social level, because we can't neglect the field of education and the issues of the large chunk of the population who are bearing the brunt of this modernity and the development discourse with the multiple marginalities. So, viewing girls and women's experiences through the male lens, it is also observed by all eminent scholars in India and the world that the policies are viewing the women issues with the lens, not with the female lens, with the male lens, which is, and also they are treating the whole girls group as a homogeneous group, where the heterogeneity is at multi-level and at the multi-layered system. So targeted interventions for caste and minority girls, religious minority, and disaggregate data is can be helpful to address these issues, because if we are looking at the figures which are largely impressive in terms of GER, but if we see the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the girls at The entry level, their enrollment is more, but their workforce participation is very less. So these figures are again the reports prepared by the bigger agencies of the government and the government itself, state itself, but these are the disturbing figures. So similarly, these are a few uh, data figures which are procured from the different policy documents. And this is rather, I personally don't support this data because I have a strong reservations with this data. But at the ground level, the empirical situation and the realities are far, far different. But this is just also one indication about to catch our attention how this concern is a serious concern, and it raises the serious questions before all of us. Now these are not directly to the education. If you see the kind of other vulnerabilities, the women in India and the world, even during the COVID-19, how girls, patriarchy came at the surface and how girls were dropped out from the school. And even the World Bank admitted that 10 million girls could not rejoin the schools after the COVID-19 pandemic. Similarly, the climate crisis, the rising temperature on Earth, and how this rising temperature is disproportionately affecting the girls and the women's health. So gender, time use inequality, disproportionate exposures to climate, like plastic homes, or the trap with the heat and because of the rising temperature of the earth. And the women are the more vulnerable group, particularly the girls. So all this discourse poses one question, that why education is important for the girls, and how the almost 50% of the population is facing the multiple marginalizations in different ways. So thank you so much. I think I would like to stop here. So again, with the happy International Women Day to all of you. And I'm so grateful to the organizers for organizing this talk on this a very, very important theme on a very important day, International Women Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Kaur. It was really very informative and very serious talk, full with data, and obviously the disparity is very painful. Let's hear the concluding remark by Dr. Vijita Rajan, and then we will go for the question answer. Hello, Dr. Rajan.
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you take out the slide thing, Satvinderji? Can you take out the slide so that, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Professor Satvinder, for this wonderful lecture. I personally really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that's the case with others too. I think it really laid out the larger context of girls' education in India, particularly when we think about girls from minority community. Both the conceptual anchors and the empirical narratives that you discussed in the talk have raised a lot of critical concerns that we need to be mindful about in this context. I wouldn't dare to summarize all of the important observations that you made, but I'll highlight a few things, and I also wish to add some reflections on this. You began with talking about gender as a social construct, and that is really one of the fundamental premises in gender studies. And in fact, today, many feminists argue that sex itself is a social construct, not just just gender. And many biologists themselves with feminist orientation agree with this, and how we mark bodies as male and female based on socially agreed upon criteria, which by default excludes intersex or transgender bodies and so on. And so I think the idea that sex and gender are both social construct is really where we need to ground this whole thing in. You also rightly highlighted how structures of economy, changing relations of capitalism and politics have been co-opting patriarchy, and how one can think about capitalist patriarchy and Brahminical patriarchy, contextualizing that in the Indian context and so on. And it really becomes important even today, given that even global agencies talk about women's empowerment in connection to economic growth and GDP, rather than women's empowerment or education as valuable in themselves. So there is really instrumentality is that which drives some of these agendas. And I think that you really highlighted some of those aspects. The other theme that really came out in the talk was also the complicated relationship with state and culture, and how we cannot separate education from larger social forces, especially religious identities for minority girls is increasingly becoming a site of contestation. And for the minority girl child, body itself is a site of exclusion, which is readily visible. I'm remembering this recent incident that happened in Kerala just last October. There was huge uproar around this incident in Kerala, where a Muslim student in high school studying in a Christian managed institution, a CBSE school, who came to school wearing a hijab, and the school objected because it is violating the school's secular uniform policy. There was a lot of back and forth between parents and the school. There was police, protection within the school. Meanwhile, the deputy director of education district in this particular district issued a directive that students should be allowed to wear hijab if they wish to, and it went to High Court, and a lot of back and forth. Religious organizations came into the picture, saying that this is unconstitutional and so on. I mean, this is not a new episode, right? This has been a recurring episode in many states of India, for that matter, and it once again underlines how girls' education in India has historically been a site of layered contestations among various stakeholders, be it parents, be it the state, the judiciary, the school itself. And you highlighted that as well, how schools are functioning as a site of these conflicts as well. And schools have also often functioned as extensions of home and tradition, which has rarely unsettled with the very fundamental gendered cultural norms in any radical way. And sometimes it has also been, strategically used, and the continuity between home and school is precisely what has also reassured many families to send their daughters to school. However, in this case, the institution portrayed itself as neutral, secular space where visible religious markers allegedly violates its ethos. An ironic stance, given the teachers, the nuns themselves wear distinct religious attire, but without it being seen as compromising the institutional neutrality or secular climate, so to say. Uh, while in the current political climate, where Muslim identity markers are already fraught and communities experience heightened precarity, disallowing even a bodily marker like hijab will also risk enacting a form of symbolic violence that again disproportionately burdens the minority child. And this is not again a standalone case. This is true in many secular state-run schools who ostensibly claim as being secular. There is this recent ethnographic study by someone called Shaima Amatullah, who from her ethnographic study in government high school in Bangalore again looks at how Muslim children navigate a double burden of exclusion, and first through this secularism, which in the context of Hindu ethics, where Hindu symbols and rituals are presented as universal norms, and secondly how Muslim students face exclusion through stereotypes and discourses that otherize Indian Muslims. And she in the study she points out how school officially promotes a secular ethos, but at the same time many everyday practices contradict this claim. And because school routines largely reflect Hindu cultural practices, children from minority backgrounds, be it Muslim or Christians, in this particular study context, they're expected to show tolerance by participating in rituals presented as secular but rooted in religion. As a result, Muslim students, they're also expected to demonstrate their commitment to secular values by joining these activities, whereas the Hindu student secular identity remains unquestioned. That is something that has come out of that study as well. And several other structural challenges shape the education of Muslim communities at large today, specifically girls. You have also pointed out how institutional structures are operating in relation to class and religion and so on. For instance, in many states, how there is state directives to close down madrasas in the name of secularizing education. But again, we know this will disproportionately affect Muslim girls. Again, there is that complicated connection between the home and the school, and aspects of security and safety, religious education itself, or the cancel in the higher education context, for instance, cancelling the Maulana Azad National Fellowship. It was discontinued from 2022 and 23 academic year, and it was a recommendation that came after, or a scheme that came after the Sachar committee. But again, how we know how these active dismantling of institutional policies and processes are disadvantaged students from minority communities, both in school education and higher education. All of us are familiar with curricular changes and the challenges, alteration of history textbooks, and how histories are being reframed. One doesn't need to get into that, but again, that is something one should keep in mind when we talk about these things. Linking back to the Kerala incident I was talking about in the beginning, again, amidst all this legal and administrative arguments and various stakeholders taking up different positions, the Muslim girl's own voice is constitutionally absent and subsumed under parental authority, state power, judicial scrutiny, and various kinds of institutional positionalities. And what does she want? Is she permitted to articulate it at all? How might her desire itself be shaped by socio-cultural expectations? And Professor Satvinder also talked about how aspirations in the two contexts that she has looked at is also coming out in a very strong manner. So this narrative that there is aspirational lack has already been dismantled by n number of empirical studies, but even then there is this dominant narrative that parents lack enough aspiration, motivation, and they don't put enough effort and so on. And various studies also corroborate with what Satvinder also talked about from her study. At the same time, I think given all of these considerations, how a school as a site where we see the contradictions of religion, state, and culture being played out, and it offers certain freedom, be it the physical freedom, just getting out of the home and being in a space where one can find friends, one can socialize, and that also sort of even delaying marriage even if it is to a limited extent. These are, I think, where possibilities lie. Even though many of us still argue that education has not fundamentally altered structural inequalities in the Indian context, we cannot also deny the possibilities it offers, how it has given access to public space for girls, especially those from minority community. So I think it's important to sort of listen to their voices and their resilience, like Professor Satvinder pointed out, not in a sense of romanticizing, given how resilience is also co-opted by the neoliberal policy paradigm, and we increasingly responsibilize communities in the current context, and so on. I'll just share one last thing, and I'll not stand between Professor Satvinder and you. I know all of you are eagerly waiting to interact with Professor Satvinder. Just recently, this semester, I'm teaching this elective course for MA education students called Gender and Education. And as part of the course, just recently, a couple of days back, we were reading excerpts from this text, the autobiographical text by Rashundari Devi, which is known as one of the first women's autobiography in the Indian context. And we were reading excerpts about how difficult it was for her to even read. It took her 25 years to learn read and writing, hiding from everyone, not having any kind of access, even fearing repercussions and so on. And this one student in my classroom, she kept on smiling while she was reading this, and she is from rural Maharashtra. And after reading a few parts of the excerpts, she said, "This is my story. This is the kind of challenge that I face in my family, given my childcare responsibility, given the pressures of marriage, and how I have to come out to a different city for education." And it was really a telling moment where a text written in late 1800s, if our women students, young girls are still being able to relate it to their experience, what has really changed? Have things really changed at all? It was really a telling moment in that sense. So yeah, I'll stop here, and the floor is open to questions, I suppose.
Thank you so much. Let's have this weekly announcement. After that, we will go for question and answer. Rafat, yeah. Coming Saturday, we have two very well-known science speakers or with science background, historian of science. Gauhar Raza is going to talk on the assault on science and scientific temper in today's India. As you know, that science has been really on the what you call challenge by the this particular regime, and it is really a big bad times for science in India, even in America. So Gauhar Raza is going to talk on this theme, and he will be joined by another very well-known figure, Professor Meera Nanda, who is a historian of science. She gave a talk earlier also here, and Gauhar Raza has given multiple times. He's a very well-known personality in India on so many fields. So over to Dr. Rafat Hussain for moderating the question and answer session. Rafat.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Raziuddin. So the question and answer session is open now. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Professor Satvinderpal Kaur and Dr. Saeed Mio and Vijita Rajan. Wonderful session. Thank you, everyone. And of course, Professor Kaur presented a lot of data. So let's see how many comments and questions she gets. So there are two options of asking a question. You can raise your digital hand or put your question and comment in the chat box, and I will entertain the questions only. Comments are for the readers and for the speakers to look at it. And so let's begin. I do not see, I see a comment. Let's begin.
Hijab Khatun.
Yeah, now I am looking the hand. Okay. Let's take a Hijab Khatun. Please. I ask you to unmute.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Professor. My question is, thank you for such a wonderful and engaging lecture. It was a wonderful presentation by you on Muslim minority girls' education. My question is what are the possibilities you see for Muslim education in India, given the present scenario when no significant study has been conducted to know the socio-economic and educational conditions of Muslims in India in the last 20 years after such a committee report. And we all who are working in the field of minority education know very well that there is a very serious lack of reliable data available to us. Current data, there is no current data available basically. And when the government at the center and at the various states are various states are rolling back whatever the affirmative action policies Muslim minorities have for their educational empowerment. For example, we have seen that Maulana Azad National Fellowship has been stopped for now for the last 2 years. And the madrasa government of India started madrasa modernization program in 1990s. And under this, two programs were started in 2009-10. For example, a scheme for providing quality education in madrasas, SPQM, and the infrastructure development of minority institutes, IDMI. And so whatever and the merit scholarships and mostly currently in many states Muslim minorities have no separate section for the scholarships. Earlier they were having, but currently in UP I can say regarding UP that UP government has no separate section for Muslim minorities. Either there are general students or SC, ST, OBCs, but nobody talks about minority, Muslim minorities or minorities के लिए कोई section अलग से नहीं है. So in this scenario, when government is taking back whatever it has given earlier, so what are the possibilities you see? Kindly
Thank you.
inform us regarding this.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Rather, your question is my question also. So this is a question for all, and you have rightly pointed out that after the Sachar committee report, there is no report or study. Yes, but the case is not for only Muslim minority studies. There is a no database about the rural girls and about the rural population, how rural girls and the other minorities. So I think the education is facing a sheer neglect in that way, and the education at all the level is suffering. Yes, the financial issues are there, the scholarships and the fellowships are being cut down over the last years, couple of years. And also there is a lack of, see, even after the pandemic there is no comprehensive report on the pandemic's impact. There are studies like smaller scale studies individually being conducted by the people, by the scholars, but at the state level, there is no comprehensive survey what kind of losses like the education field has suffered from during the pandemic. And you have rightly pointed out, yes, there is no separate in terms of scholarships, even for in the other states too. So I think the present dispensation, the present scenario, and unfortunately, the education is not the prior agenda of the developmental discourse. There are other discourses on the, and the developments are being measured in terms of the GDP and the enrollment figures. But yes, the equitable development is very important, which is should be addressed at the policy level. And like I have already pointed out, that policies are also at the implementation part, even at the formulation part, they are neglecting the ground level issues and the realities because of the lack of comprehensive data. Even the NEP 2020, the document is lacking serious, lacks the database, because there is very few mentions about the figures and the data, because without comprehensive studies, the policy documents may also lose their sense and purpose. But yes, I agree with you, and I don't know the possibilities and the kind of hopes which we can have. But yes, the scholars, I think at our own level, that we have made a little effort. Rather, it was very challenging to collect data on such a sensitive issue. Sometimes the schools were not permitting, parents were not permitting for the interviews, even girls were not ready to open their minds. So yes, but these are empirical small scale studies. The academia can do only that, we can have the studies, but yes, there is a complete lack at the state level. No comprehensive data and no comprehensive report is there. So
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope.
Thank you, Professor Kaur. So I noticed that there are so many professors, intellectuals, teachers are in attendance, and I encourage them to ask questions or pass comments. So let's, another question is from Zulekha Yasmin. What is the solution to welcome minority girls to educational institutes? Loaded question. Go ahead, anybody wants to take it? What are the solutions?
I think I have answered in the first question's answer.
Yeah.
Because this is a, yes, very complex, but yes, the kind of critical questions, critical debates, and the discussions like today's discussion, these are also helpful, rather than the complete silence of the academia to take over these kind of issues. And these issues to be discussed in our day-to-day conversations, because the kind of contestations and the critical debates must emerge out of our daily. Then it will, we should write, we should speak, we should study, search at our levels. So this is the kind of efforts the academia can do in the current circumstances, what I feel.
Okay, similar questions from by the name NS. Okay, my question is about what kind of establishment our society need, as we are celebrating 8th March as a Mahila Divas or International Women's Day. On the very next day, we will step towards patriarchal system again. So living in this kind of society, can we have our own stand? Or rural minority girls could dream for higher education?
Yeah.
Everyone,
So
everyone is
yes, I think we have to condemn the market model of education, because education is not a market commodity. It is supposed to be a public service, and it should be subsidized and in the public sector. So when the education will be developed in the public sector, and the subsidized education will be available in the equitable basis, and the private model and the commodification of education should be contested in that way, that this is which is education is a human right, and the justice to avail this human right should be like the in the equitable and affordable basis, because of the rise in the cost of education in the private institutions, educational institutions, and also the increase of enrollment in the private institutions, the one section of the society is going to be excluded systematically from the education. So the public institution should be strengthened with more funds, more autonomy. No political interference will be there, and the academics and the intellectual contribution of the universities must be appreciated rather than the quantification in terms of accreditation and all. So the qualitative aspect of the role of the universities and the institutions must be appreciated, and at the policy level, education, the treatment and the education should be treated as a humanistic in the humanistic purpose, not in terms of capitalist, or in terms of creating hierarchies among the people and among the society. So education should be have the role of homogenizing the society rather than stratifying the society into different stratas. So this is kind of uh, ideal dream I can have, but this is actually what is the purpose of education. Being a student of education, the real objective of the education is the humanistic purpose of education, because and the social purpose of education, because education has a great potential for the social transformation of the society. If we want really the social transformation in the society, then we have to relook and reimagine that kind of education system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next is Zishan Sara and Shivam Saab. I'm coming back to you. So Zishan Sara first.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the lecture, Professor Kaur. My question is quite about experience. I'll try to put my question in a nutshell. But okay, ma'am, there is a fear among moms. I will not say in only minority Muslim moms, but like जैसे ये can I ask in Hindi or Hindustani
Yeah,
language?
yeah, you go ahead if you feel comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. मुस्लिम माइनॉरिटीज में हम देखते हैं कि ऑलरेडी लिटरेसी रेशियो बहुत ज़्यादा कम है, बड़ी मुश्किल से लड़कियां पहुंचती हैं स्कूल्स कॉलेजेस वगैरह में, और उसके बाद जिनको अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली, जिनको एक्सेस मिला है, उनमें अगर मैं अपने पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस की बात करूं अबाउट एक ग्रुप, मेरा अपना ग्रुप जो मेरे फ्रेंड्स का है, दे आर न्यू मॉम्स, और जिनमें से कुछ वर्किंग हैं, कुछ नहीं हैं, जो कुछ रिलीजियस हैं प्रैक्टिकली, और बहुत सी ऐसी हैं जो प्रैक्टिकली रिलीजियस नहीं है, ठीक है। तो उनमें ये डिस्कशंस अभी चल रहे हैं कि उनमें से एक का ये वाकया है कि शी वाज अ ब्राइट स्टूडेंट, बट उसको यूनिवर्सिटी तक पहुंचने के बाद, काफ़ी अच्छा परफॉर्मेंस के बाद, फिर वो वहाँ पर फैकल्टी बनती है और उसको अपने ही फेलो कोलीग्स के साथ हरासमेंट, सेक्सुअली हरासमेंट की वो विक्टिम है और वो बहुत ट्रॉमेटाइज्ड है। प्लस एक और उसके साथी हैं जो देख रहे हैं, जो टीचर्स हैं, वो अपने स्कूल्स में देख रहे हैं, एक तो एलीट स्कूल में टीचर हैं और दूसरे मॉडरेट स्कूल्स में जिसमें सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास के बच्चे पढ़ते हैं, वहाँ पर वो एनवायरनमेंट देख रहे हैं कि मोबाइल फोन्स, इंटरनेट, सोशल मीडिया वगैरह की वजह से स्टूडेंट्स में जो बॉय स्टूडेंट्स जो है वल्गर इतने ज़्यादा हो रहे हैं कि जो छोटी छोटी लड़कियां हैं उनको बहुत ज़्यादा सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। तो इनमें अब ये डिस्कशन हो रही है कि क्या हम अपनी लड़कियों को स्कूल भेजें, कैसे भेजें, उनको कितना हम प्रोटेक्शन दे सकते हैं, उनको जेंडर, मतलब जी फॉर ग्रेप्स नहीं, जी फॉर जेंडर, ई फॉर इक्वालिटी नॉट ई फॉर एलिफेंट की समझ अगर बचपन से दें, तब भी हम उस एनवायरनमेंट से उनको कैसे बचाएं। तो कुछ का अब ये मानना है कि हाँ देखो, आखिर हमारे रिलीजन, जो टिपिकल रिलीजन की वो सेंस थी कि भाई लड़कियों को ना पढ़ाया जाए, जो गलत है अकॉर्डिंग टू देयर रिलीजन इस्लाम, तो उनको ये लगता है कि हाँ चलो अच्छा ही ये घर लड़कियां ज्यादा ना पढ़े, जल्दी शादी कर दे। या कुछ का कहना है कि नहीं, हम होम स्कूलिंग करेंगे क्योंकि अपनी लड़कियों को हम कैसे बचाएं। और जो सेक्सुअली हरास्ड थी यूनिवर्सिटी में, उसका ये कहना है कि भाई अब मैं इंटरनेशनल स्कूल्स में नहीं भेजूंगी, जबकि उसके पास सारे सोर्सेज हैं, फाइनेंशियली वो बहुत स्ट्रांग है, लेकिन वो डर रही है कि मैं अपनी बच्ची को कैसे बचाऊं। तो इस फियर का के ऊपर आपका क्या टेक है मैम? हाउ डू यू सी दिस फियर? How do you see, ma'am? What's your take on this? Thank you so much to allow me.
Thank
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for a very valid and very, very disturbing question indeed. बिकॉज ये जो आपका क्वेश्चन है ये बहुत सारे लोगों का, ये हम सभी का क्वेश्चन है। मैंने यहाँ पे हाईलाइट नहीं करा क्योंकि मैंने देखा बहुत सारी गर्ल्स थी जो वो आउट ऑफ फियर उनके पेरेंट्स उनको पढ़ाई से स्कूल से विथड्रॉ कर लेते हैं, उनको हटा लेते हैं। तो इट prevails everywhere, particularly when the girls, the context is of minority. So in this way, I think the parents role, तो मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि मैंने एक किसी फादर से बात करी और फादर्स को पूछा कि आप अपनी बेटी के साथ कभी बात करते हो कि आपने ऐसे कोई स्कूल के बारे, एजुकेशन के बारे। तो उन्होंने मेरे को कहा कि जब कोई तहजीब का या अदब का क्वेश्चन आता है, लाइक द क्वेश्चन ऑफ कल्चर और टू एटिक्वेट्स, तो हम अपने वी हैव टू प्रोटेक्ट द बोथ तहजीब एंड द अदब। तो हमें जब कोई ऐसी बातों पे मैं करता हूँ, बट मैंने और कभी किसी एजुकेशन के मैटर पे उसके साथ कभी कोई डिस्कशन नहीं किया। तो ये हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन था, आंसर था कि उनका डायलॉग जो है पेरेंट्स का वो बच्चों लड़कियों के साथ बहुत कम है। और जो फैमिली की हायरार्की है उसमें वो लड़की की जो प्लेस है, जिसमें ज्वाइंट फैमिली है, इन द हायरार्की ऑफ द फैमिली द गर्ल्स प्लेस इज वेल डिसाइडेड कि आपने इतना की बोलना है, बड़ों के सामने ऐसी बातें करनी। तो उसमें क्या है कि लड़कियों, तो मुझे जो लगता है कि हमें थोड़ा सा ये सोसाइटी में चेंज लाना पड़ेगा अबाउट द वैल्यू ऑफ एजुकेशन। So which unfortunately we education people we couldn't make that kind of movement in the society कि how education is important। क्योंकि हमने जैसे अभी डॉक्टर विजेता ने कहा कि हमने एजुकेशन को एक इकोनॉमिक गेन्स और हमने परचेजिंग पावर के साथ जोड़ के देखा है। हमने एजुकेशन को एज अ ह्यूमन राइट नहीं देखा कि हाउ एजुकेशन इज इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अ गर्ल इन हर लाइफ and to face this society which is full of risks and which is the perception is not secure। तो ये जो है, बट मैं आपको इंटरेस्टिंगली बताती हूँ कि इन केस ऑफ मलेरकोटला द गर्ल्स वुड नेवर फील दैट वी आर facing insecurity issue। they say that yes we are safe, हम जाते हैं, even they are in the attire, they are in hijab, a few they have their own symbols, identities, all they are protected। but that this is the one takeaway, that how communal harmony and the political discourse and the cultural milieu which we are providing to the girls is important and which is neglected somehow। The within a country are the two contexts, one context is which is advocating the peace and harmony, and the other context is because you maybe know about the Malerkotla's history, which is a very religious history and a very rich history। you can see the Gurdwara church and the masjid, and the mandir they are joining, and the people who are visiting mandir they are also visiting the mosque, and they are also visiting the Gurdwara। So that kind of environment we have seen through our own eyes over there, and that was the insight and the kind of interest in us to compare the two contexts, because the peace and harmony in the environment is affects the girls education much more than the boys education, they feel safe। but your question is still I don't know whether I'm able to address, but yes, kind of an awareness among parents and the kind of the confidence among the girls need to be instilled। so that is the only takeaway, but at the state level I can't say anything, that because the identity boundaries are so sharp and they are not ready to compromise at any cost, whether the girl is failing in the exams, the girl is dropping out of the school. So because they are coming to be very, very in a sharpened way out of their day-to-day behavior with the kids, particularly with the girls. So I hope you
Yeah,
are.
Yeah.
Professor Satvinder, I want to just add to what you are deliberating, if the chair allows me.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is very
Identify.
insightful session which is going on, and I first of all congratulate Professor Satvinder for bringing this significant, I think, presentation on interaction of gender and education, and especially in regard to the educational experience of the minority girls in India. So, what I discover as with my own experience in my own growing, and I'm a teacher who teach in India in a college in Chandigarh. I come from Saharanpur, where we have you know uh, a population which shares minority, and the Hindu and the Muslims both are in the equal proportions. So while growing in the classrooms, and I'm talking about a school where I studied, which was a convent school, which was not a public government school. And while growing in my school, I never come across a difference in my classmates with me. And, one of my friends, Rafat Hassan, she studied from IIT Roorkee, and I come to Punjab University. But one day she calls me up and she says that, my daughter, when she came today back home, she felt, uncomfortable with the kind of questions her friends are asking to her in regard to her religion. And I mean, while we were growing, we never asked these questions to each other. So she think that she's not Hindu, and I mean, her Hindu friends sometimes comments her. So we we thought that we need to bring this kind of story to our younger generation.
Yes, Dr. Ambuj, you are not audible. Is it
Okay.
okay? Your
Yeah,
question is
am I
being
audible?
answered. Yes,
Am I
now
audible
you
now?
are. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to bring more stories of this close relationships of the generation where I come from with the current generation of students. And simultaneously, I see it in education. I don't see it in isolation with the symbols within our community, which brings more greater hope, like from minority section, if there is an officer, say an IS officer, or a poet, or or someone who is into a prominent position, because the students who are growing in school, they want to see some hope in the sense where they can actually imagine and dream. And it's difficult because we have uh, we have such a wide network of schools and colleges. But yes, if in a district, if there is some prominent minority uh, individual who is progressing in some kind of an area, say called cinema or art, or public position, so that, or a sports person, that gives an impact. Like when I spoke to my friend, I asked her that when we remember Pandit Somnath Sharma, who got the Paramveer Chakra, we cannot forget Abdul Hamid, who also got the Paramveer Chakra. And this was our dialogue, our generational dialogue. So, and on the other hand, if we see the Indian cinema, and we see Madhubala, we see Meena Kumari, we see Suraya, we see Wahida Rahman, how progressive Muslim community in the sense, in a
particular time when we just got independent, and when cinema was not seen as more, cherishing kind of a space, and there has been so I think dominance of the minority heroines in the space of these spaces. So how we can translate that, if we look back, so are we going to see the sides which we cannot ignore? But I am just thinking about a hope, thinking about how in her times, uh, uh, let me just how Mahajbeen Bano was asked to share her name as Meena Kumari and not as Mahajbeen Bano, and there was a market which was working behind films. But even despite that, we see that there has been an acceptance without a conflict. But simultaneously, we have to see the other aspect as well. But can we deny the contribution of Muslim women to Indian cinema, and how stronger contribution it has been? Can we forget the Mumtaz Zehn Begums, which is known as Madhubala, Chalti Ka Naam Gaadi, and countless films? The times. I mean, why to see Muslim women as someone who is? I mean, I don't deny the kind of current the struggles, but what kind of an hope on one side cinema generates?
Sharmaji, please conclude.
So my hunch was that when Satvinderji, you are bringing this intersectionality, so we need to bring these prominent faces and these prominent stories, either through journalism, either through the kind of an education which your institution, when we come to a training through this institutions. So when we hear Professor Satvinder, who talks about kind of bridging the gaps and talking in a framework where it gives some kind of an inspiration. So I'll just stop here. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sharmaji, for your comment. Would you guys want to say something or move on? These are the comments.
Sahid, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think let's move on. I don't have much significant to say at this point.
Okay, thank
You
you.
are very right, but your desire and your wish to include these stories in the curriculum, you must be aware about the politics of curriculum. And Vijita also has raised that the mainstream curriculum, I think it seems difficult to include these stories, but yes, through our own efforts we can provide the reading material about the contribution to, but that will be at the individual level. But these are perennial issues, but the issues with the change socio-political context, the issues get changed and sometimes gets more serious and sometimes are addressed. But you are right that about the contribution in the film industry by these people, because at that time it was not, I think, differentiated that who is contributing. It was in totality things were, I think, imagined at that time, even in the field of science or everywhere. So I think, Amuj, you are right. And yes, at the individual level, we should have those kind of reading sessions, those kind of reading material we can provide to our students, and we can also have should have that kind of environment to create and to foster those kind of conducive learning conditions for our students, so that they may feel free to question, they may feel free to share their issues, their concerns, and the critical debate and dialogue we should initiate in our classrooms. So I think at individual level we can do this. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's move on. We have only a few minutes left. Shivam Chaudhary, sir. Shivam.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
I just wanted to say that Professor Kaur raised a really good point, and I remembered a shairi because of her comment and because of her thought that she said that we should read, write, or raise our voice, and education is not do in isolation. So I just wanted to quote that शायरी कि ख्वाब से बेदार होता है महकूम जरा तो फिर सुला देती है मरानों की शायरी. So we are not supposed to sleep and we have to raise our voice. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shivani Pathak.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, thank you very much to taken out such incredible topic to have a discussion on. Ma'am, actually, I have a question that, as we know, like if we talk about the grassroots level, as we know that a major section of Indian population is facing the situations, like facing the problems even for the basic necessities. Like if I talk about the households of slums, like it is really hard to think about to provide education, uh, to especially to the girl child. So ma'am, what should be the executions for such underprivileged sections where it is like hard to think about to provide education, where they are facing the problems of basic necessities like food, shelter and homes? Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah, yes, Shivani, this is a question, and historically, it is a very old question and still persists in our society. Yes, for those children, state initiated many like midday meal scheme and scholarships, and also under RTE, Right to Education Act, where free and compulsory education is available in the government schools till class 8th. But yes, these schemes are not sufficient because of the family circumstances and the cultural capital, like I already have shared that matters, because there is a opportunity cost also. The sending child to school is like family has to bear the cost of sending child to school, because the child is supporting the family through other multiple ways. But yes, the poverty is the major issue, and particularly we also have had a study on slums, Chandigarh slum, and we have seen that the so many children, they are dropping out of their school, they are leaving school because of the household responsibilities and all. And yes, you are very right that sending education is their education is not, they are just struggling for their basic needs, and education is not basic necessity for those families. You are right. But yes, the upliftment, providing employment opportunities to the parents, and like schemes like Manrega, which was assuring some days in a month to provide employment to the parents, I I think was very good at that time, before the new change, which unfortunately it has faced. So, like these schemes were, in a way, that is why the almost 100% enrollment happened at the primary level in India, because because of these midday meal scheme and other schemes, Free Education, Right to Education Act 2009, the children, they came to the schools and they are accessing. But yes, the issue of poverty and the cost of sending a child to a school is again a very very serious concern in the Indian society. And
Thank you.
Ma'am, I 100% agree to that, but it is also a problem that to campaign such policies to such places, it's also a hard task. So, ma'am, what's the take on that?
yeah, So creating awareness, that is why sometimes the schools are associated with the departments just to create the awareness about the policies and about the need of sending children to schools and all. Yes, but this is a issue, but I think little improvements are also seen, Shivani. This is not a very kind of we should not be very pessimistic, because the at the primary level the some issues are addressed, and but yes, the minimum income of the family is very important and basic necessity to send a child to a school.
Thank you. Let's move on. The question from Rajiv Kumar Saab. While many women from disadvantaged group have achieved higher education, boundaries and social expectation around caregiving and family roles often remain strong. At times, this can result in what may be called educational forms of the patriarchy, where women's leadership potential continues to be limited. As a community, what steps or support system can we create so that these women are able to move beyond such constraints and take leadership in guiding girls from disadvantaged background towards education and employment? Good question. This is the same what Western world has done.
Yeah, but yes, we have discussed a lot about the patriarchy and how this patriarchy is going to be in the new variants of patriarchy is coming with the change in the socio-cultural conditions and the model of development in the society. So patriarchy is a kind of mindset and the kind of ideology which works. Patriarchy, the opposite of patriarchy is not a matriarchy. Opposite of patriarchy is equality. So I think the patriarchal structures we have to start from the, because sometimes the educational institutions, rather than providing a alternate to the society, they are also practicing and they are also replicating the same kind of patriarchal setups in the educational institutions. And this about the role of women in the development, can be seen her individual participation as a human being, the gendered roles and the gender spaces we have to break, and also we have to look into the kind of curriculum and the how curriculum indirectly conveys the patriarchal kind of structure strengthening, how the decisions by the state are again patriarchal, and how the political participation is under quotes women political participation in a patriarchal society. So patriarchy is very very at the microscopic level, it is impacting the women's chance to get education. So I think we people from education, those who are thinking about these issues, we should come forward to write on these issues, and to also to explore the possibilities, what alternative model can be given to the society in terms of the gender relations, in the on the basis of gender justice, and with the approach of human rights, and to develop the capabilities in an equitable way. So your question is important. I think there is a need to change the mindset of the people.
Okay, thank you. There are a few comments you can read yourself. So now, last call. If anyone wants to ask a question, we have a couple of minutes left for the top of the hour. Let's see. Otherwise,
Lilian, you have any question?
good.
Lilian
Good call.
Obezi. Yeah, Vandana, you want to add something? Vandana Singh.
Lilian Obezi is there. Vandana,
Yes.
I see the Vandana comment. Vandana is there. Vandana,
Hi.
please say
Can
something. Yeah,
Can you
I see.
hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Yeah,
Go.
sorry, my camera is not working for some reason, so I cannot. I wanted to switch it on, but somehow it's not working. Maybe it is giving me option. I don't know if it is working now. Yeah. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. It's really amazing to see. And I have already commented, I don't have a question because I know I have also worked in this area and I see the depth and magnitude of this particular topic. And I would encourage, yeah, we need more such platforms to have these conversations. And it is just amazing what you're doing. So I'm really grateful. And I'm also very grateful for this platform that, Professor Satvinder was invited for this, and Vijayata's comment. They were just very equally interesting and shocking as well, because it gives a real picture of what is going on. So relating all that context into real world scenario was, yeah. So research is powerful, but at the same time, giving that anecdotal evidence to support that research is amazing. So thank you for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the question and answer session. And thank you, everyone, all three speakers, Professor Kaur, Dr. Myo, and Dr. Rajan. And before we finish, I hand over back to Dr. Raziuddin for his final comment.
You should ask some question.
Go ahead. I know what you ask, and it's the same for me.
Well, it was a wonderful session, very informative. Much of the things are in fact known about the minorities, disadvantages, and all those. But we also know that in spite of all, in the majority community, female education also, it goes to, if you see the education literacy rate, it goes to almost 80% or 75% above. But unfortunately, in the workforce, at every level, overall, it doesn't go beyond 20%. So this is still, that shows that the Indian society, in almost 75 years post-independence, is very much divided into itself. I mean, they provide education, but the patriarchy or the system doesn't allow women to become empowered. And in fact, this happens within the minority. I show you this scenario. Just like it is such a class society in India, whether Hindus or Muslims or in other communities. In Hindus, it takes a religious tone like caste and all those. But in Muslims also it is there. It is class. It's not caste maybe, it is class. Almost all who come in the middle class or upper middle class, like the moderator here, who was here, Dr. Rafat Hussain, or me, or others in the audience, every single one in their family, including girls, are highly educated. So it go, and they are all in jobs. They are in good places. I'm here. And so are many. So it is always in India the class. The upper, in Muslims, it is low number because they are already low in number. They are only 14-15% of the entire society. So their creamy class is 5%. Those 5% are as good as the 5 or 25% of the upper class of Hindus. They are compete because they all have the same resources. I mean, same resources, I mean, they're professor to professor, doctor to doctor, engineer to engineer, teacher to teacher. So those resources are there. Yes, they are differently, culturally a little bit different. The Muslims are obviously more conservative in many things. Nonetheless, that class, everyone is educated. So there is a problem here. Sociologically, I think education should include chapters, but of course, there is so much politics in India. Nobody will be in a fair, in a fair way, include things to have a good reflection of society. It is more myopic, like, poor class, backward class, marginalized class. Obviously, they were always marginalized. Look at this 18%. Why the 18% women are only 18%? Who are those 18% women? I'm sure they are from Brahmins to all the other class. Even the Brahmin women, they are not getting that so much empowerment. So it's always different reasons are there. Our society there is really in many ways is still lagging behind how to restructure it. Even here, regions are different. If you come in the Northeast in America, highly educated liberal class, if you go deep south, they still remain in the Civil War period. So they are more conservative, they are less educated. Wherever there is more, this and regarding this education thing, Muslims, girls, they are more secure than the Hindu girls I see. In the present context, all these, if you say the story of rapes, the story of harassment, they happen mostly within the community. It's not that that happens to Muslim girls because that will create a communal tension also. So that is less. So it is part of Muslims' problem also. Muslims are conservative. The poor Muslims or the rural Muslims are conservative. They have no priority for education for their girls. Their boys are also mostly doing the, karkhandar. They are doing, if you go in Delhi, go in Banaras, there is a large population of Muslims who just want to do business. Small, so they have no interest in education actually. Anyway, it's very late. Go, I think 2 hours past for you, 11:30, right? So I'm not sure whether you have taken your dinners or not. We always feel very apologetic about that. And it is right here, 1 p.m., noon time. So,
And with Rosa.
and with Rosa, those who are. But anyway, I am. You are not, but anyway.
Hey, it's not a public information.
So
Thank you.
we will meet after 5 hours to break our fast and that. Thank you very much. It was wonderful. I'm sure a lot of your students and